Hello and welcome back to my channel. So today I want to offer you like a side note to my last video. So if you haven't seen my last video when I asked who's my father, I'll link it down below and I'll try and link it up here if I can figure out how to do it. So if you haven't seen that, if you could give that a watch first, then this video will make a bit more sense. First of all, a quick recap. I'm Steve, the Agony Uncle. I'm welcoming comments, feedback, emails, anything you like. I'm here to offer you the benefit of my life experience. I'd like you to send me your problems, your concerns about relationships, whether that be partner relationships, sibling relationships, parent relationships, whatever you're going through, whatever's causing you a little bit of anguish, a little bit of angst. Share them with me and I can give you the benefit of my advice through this channel. We can discuss things. I personally suffer with mental health problems, lack of self-confidence. I grew up in an abusive house. I think I've got quite a lot of life experience that I'd really like to share. I'm going to share some of my story with you and I hope you can do the same with me and together we can work things out. So that's just a quick recap. I always welcome comments and emails and we'll just take it from there. So a side note to my last video where I asked who's my father and I explained that I've never known my father. So somebody who's quite close to me, this week we sat down and had a long conversation about her experience, which is in some ways quite similar to my own. This lady, who I'm going to call Kay because it's her story, and this isn't about upsetting or embarrassing her. Her mum was married. That marriage only lasted a matter of months. But Kay was born during that marriage. That marriage broke down. The man who was in the army at the time was dishonourably discharged from the army and he basically disappeared off the scene, leaving Kay with her mother. Kay's mother picked herself up and got into a relationship with another man and they quickly fell in love and they got married. And that man did the right thing by Kay and brought her up as his own. So when Kay was about 5, 6 years old at school, she remembers quite vividly one day being picked up from school early, and the story she was told was there was a bad man that was trying to steal her from school. Bearing in mind she knew nothing about her biological father, she was too young and he wasn't spoken about. Secrets and lies again? Yeah, it was brushed under the carpet. And Kay was kept in the dark. Fast forward a few years and Kay remembers hearing whispers. Overheard conversations. Nothing direct, nothing that she can put her finger on, but something in the back of her mind says that what she heard planted a seed. She never felt comfortable asking her mum about it, but something her grandmother had said stuck in her mind. So when she was approximately 13 or 14, she said to her grandmother, exactly what is my story? Who is my father? And her grandmother confirmed that the man that was bringing her up, the man who had stood by her mother, married her mother, was not actually her biological father, and that Kay's mother had been married for a short time previously. Now this man that married Kay's mother brought Kay up as his own and they used his surname to register Kay at school, and as far as Kay was concerned that was her surname. Now at the age of 15 Kay became pregnant, and just before her child was born her mother said to her, you need to legally change your name. Now that was the first reference her mother had ever made to things not being quite as Kay thought they were, or at least how she was made to believe they were. So she said to her mother, what do you mean? She said, well, you can't register your child's surname because that actually isn't your surname. So you'll legally have to get it changed. So just before her child was born, Kay turned 16 and was able to change her surname legally to her stepfather's name, the name that she'd used and known all her life. Even then, her mother didn't want to discuss things, didn't offer any explanation, and brushed it under the carpet. Fast forward a few more years, and one day her grandmother, which was her maternal grandmother, said to her, "Kay, I've got a passport with your mum and your dad, your biological dad, and you on it. And I've also got a wedding picture when your mum married your biological father." So Kay took that, and even to this day hasn't shared that information with her mother. Whenever Kay tried to breach this questions with her mother said, "He's a bad man, you don't know what you're getting yourself into, so leave it." Quite forcefully said, "Leave it. I don't want to discuss it with you." Fast forward a few more years, when Kay was roughly 26, she got it into her head that she would really, really like to find out who her biological father was. Before she did anything, she quietly spoke to her stepfather, and he offered his support. He said, "You need to do what you need to do. If this is something you need to do, you have my full support. I won't be offended. I won't be upset by it." And Kay really appreciated that, because this man, although by then she had other brothers and sisters, half-brothers and sisters, she never felt that this man treated her any different. He literally brought her up as his own, and Kay certainly didn't want to upset or offend him, or for him to think she thought any less of him because he wasn't her biological father. With his support, again, she didn't discuss it with her mother, but she went to the Salvation Army with a name and a date of when they got married, and she asked the Salvation Army if they could possibly trace her biological father. Fast forward a few months, and they got in touch, and they said, "We think we've traced your biological father. Would you like us to contact him?" And Kay said, "Yes, please." Fast forward a little bit more time, and her biological father wrote her a letter, which was passed on to Kay via the Salvation Army. He offered Kay his phone number, and eventually, when she plucked up the courage, just a few weeks later, she phoned him, and that was the start of their relationship. Fast forward a few months, and he invited Kay down to stay with his wife and their 3 children. And Kay, by this time, had had a second child, a daughter, and she took her daughter with her. She spent a couple of weeks down there, and she really felt a bond with her biological father, and she enjoyed her time down there. And after her 2 weeks, she came back and she felt a little bit more at peace, that she'd done the right thing and that they were going to build a relationship. So fast forward a few more months, and her biological father's children came up and stayed with her for 2 weeks. And they were quite a bit younger than Kay, and she looked after them. But at the end of the 2 weeks, 2 of the children, the eldest 2, begged Kay not to send them back. Now normally, children, yes, they enjoy their holiday, but they can't wait to get back to their parents. She'd loved having them, and they'd had a great time. The younger one, yeah, she did miss her mum and dad, but the 2 elder children, they just didn't want to go back. Kay thought it was a little bit funny, but just thought, well, they've had a good time. Obviously they had to go back. So Kay's father, biological father, came up and picked them up and stayed with Kay for a couple of days, and that was great. But while he was up, they arranged to go on holiday together. So a few months later, Kay went to Spain with her biological father, his wife, and the 3 children. And to start with, they had a great time. But an argument broke out between her father and his wife. And although Kay was in the other room, he heard her father slap very hard his wife and left marks on her face. Kay immediately went in to help and was told to mind her own business. It was nothing to do with her. She was devastated that her father, her biological father, could do such a thing. She was deeply, deeply upset. Luckily, it was the end of the holiday, and they came home and went their separate ways. Kay did keep in touch with her with her biological father and the children. But that really was the beginning of the end of their relationship. Now, 9 years ago, Kay's biological father died, and she went to the funeral out of respect. But at the funeral, the children were there, and her biological father's wife was there. But they said, "Good riddance." Glad to see the back of him. Couldn't believe it took so long. And Kay was really puzzled, really upset by it, that they could be so happy that her biological father had died. Fast forward just a couple of days after the funeral, and Kay had a phone call from her biological father's wife. And the truth came out. Her biological father had been sexually abusing 2 of the children and his wife. Kay was devastated. How could a father of hers do such a thing? Kay felt that when she'd taken her own daughter down to meet them, she'd put herself and her young daughter in harm's way, in danger. Over the next few months, the truth about her biological father came out. He was not a nice man. He verbally, sexually, and physically abused his wife and 2 of his children. The 2 children were very young when it started. And even to this day, they struggle with what their father did to them. Kay herself now wishes she'd never bother getting in touch. She feels absolutely devastated that her father could do such a thing, and a small part of her feels guilty of sending those children back to their fate after they'd been to stay with her. She really doesn't know whether she did the right thing or whether she should have just left things the way they were. Finding a father who turns out to be a monster, that's really upset her, as I'm sure you can understand. Now perhaps you can understand, well, I'm dubious about looking for my father. I'm scared of what I may find. Is my curiosity strong enough to go down the same road that Kay did? Is somebody trying to warn me that maybe I should just leave the secrets and lies? Do I need this man in my life? Do I take the risk that he could be some sort of monster? Perhaps not having a father in your life is better than having a monster in your life, even if you've never known him. I'm afraid somebody like that who you know you're blood related to, that's not nice. Not nice at all. Kay does still keep in touch with her siblings, but unfortunately the damage that their father has done to them is making it very, very difficult. They're struggling. And at the minute they're out of reach for Kay to help them. I don't want to be in the same situation. So please think about what I've said and give me some of your advice. Tell me what you would do. How would you feel if you were Kay? Please leave comments below, drop me an email. If you drop me an email, of course it's confidential, nobody knows that you've sent me an email. If you put comments below, it may have your name attached to it. So whatever is easier for you. Send me your advice, send me your thoughts. Understand how Kay feels. Understand what I'm going through. Please remember to subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you took value from this. Remember to watch the other video first and perhaps you can understand. Of course, I will let you know what I decide to do and what steps I'm going to take. Now don't forget, if you don't take time to look after yourself, you won't be here. You won't be able to look after anybody else. So please look after yourself. Till next time, thank you.